Audiobook Top, your new home for the finest selection of audiobooks available anywhere.
Imagine, if you will, the deepest night. A night where the moon hides its face, and the wind whispers secrets through ancient, gnarled trees. A night where silence itself feels like a watchful presence, heavy and suffocating. And then, breaking that fragile quiet, a sound. Not a scream, not a human cry, but something else entirely. A chorus, wild and untamed, rising from the shadowy depths of a forgotten world. And in that moment, a voice ancient and resonant might pierce the darkness, a voice that has witnessed centuries unfold, and declare with chilling reverence, "Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make. This is not a tale for the faint of heart, nor for those who cling solely to the comforting glow of reason." Our journey begins with a young English solicitor, Jonathan Harker, a man of meticulous ledgers and practical concerns, whose life is about to be irrevocably altered. He travels eastward, far beyond the familiar, civilized landscapes of Victorian London, into a land shrouded in myth and fear, Transylvania. His mission, to finalize a property transaction for a reclusive client. But as his train carries him further from gaslit streets into the jagged peaks of the Carpathians, he steps from the known into a world steeped in superstition, folklore, and unimaginable antiquity. An emissary of modernity, he unknowingly ventures into the lair of something ancient, predatory, that has slumbered for centuries, only to awaken with a hunger that transcends human understanding. He is about to discover an evil so profound, so utterly without mercy, that it will challenge the very foundations of his reality, and indeed, his soul. So, we ask, what happens when unwavering Victorian logic, an age of science and progress, meets an archaic, supernatural horror defying all explanation? What becomes of the rational mind when faced with a creature whose existence blasphemes every natural law? When the known world collides with an evil predating memory, stalking the night, thriving on humanity's very lifeblood, can reason prevail against a force so utterly unreasonable? Or will the shadow in the east, a creature of darkness and insatiable appetite, drag the unsuspecting solicitor, and perhaps the entire world, into an abyss of terror from which there is no escape? Prepare yourselves, for the night has just begun, and the children of the night are indeed making their music. Welcome, fellow travelers, to a journey into the heart of darkness. Before us lies the grandfather of all vampire stories, a masterpiece that defined the modern mythos of the bloodthirsty undead. This is no mere reading, it's an immersive experience, an excavation of one of literature's most enduring and chilling narratives. Bram Stoker, the architect of this terrifying world, chose a revolutionary way to tell his story. You won't find a traditional narrator. Instead, we are presented with a mosaic of voices, a meticulously assembled collection of documents. This is the epistolary format, a narrative built from intimate diaries, urgent letters, stark ship logs, detached newspaper clippings, and clinical psychiatric reports. Each entry offers an immediate, raw, and deeply human perspective on events as they happen. This technique brilliantly blurs the line between fiction and reality, creating an unparalleled sense of authenticity and pressing urgency. We become active participants, piecing together the terrifying truth alongside the characters, feeling their dread and confusion as if it were our own. Stoker's genius makes the unbelievable chillingly plausible and undeniably real. As your guide through this labyrinth of fear and fascination, I offer a unique perspective, a modern lens, to appreciate Stoker's brilliant vision. My role is to illuminate nuances, explore the historical and cultural contexts, and delve into the psychological depths that make Dracula more than just a horror story. We will examine how this work transcends mere genre, becoming a profound exploration of good versus evil, faith versus skepticism, and the eternal struggle between the rational and the monstrous. I will help unravel the threads, highlight Stoker's masterful use of suspense, and offer insights that enhance your understanding without overshadowing the original text. Now, let us meet some key individuals. First, Jonathan Harker, a young English solicitor whose business trip to a remote Transylvanian castle becomes his darkest nightmare, thrusting him into ancient evil. Then, Mina Murray, a woman of intelligence, strength, and compassion, who finds herself at the heart of the supernatural storm, a beacon of human resilience. And of course, the mysterious, aristocratic, and utterly compelling Count Dracula, an ancient, powerful entity of chilling charm and insatiable hunger, whose arrival in London will unleash unimaginable terror. These and others are the souls whose intertwined fates we are about to witness. Prepare yourselves, for the curtain is about to rise on a saga that will forever redefine the boundaries of fear. Chapter 1: Into the Unknown. I, Jonathan Harker, solicitor's clerk, embarked eastward, drawn by business to Count Dracula's castle. The train bore me deeper into the Carpathian Mountains, a landscape growing wilder, more ancient. Familiar Western European fields vanished, replaced by rugged peaks draped in dark forests. The air thickened with antiquity, of forgotten tales. Quaint villages' vivid garb, faces showing curious friendliness and underlying apprehension. I felt a curious outsider, explorer charting unknown territory. At Bistrit, on May 4th, local superstitions grew alarmingly apparent. The Golden Crone's landlady, her eyes reflecting generations of fear, rushed to my side. Her guttural German was hard to follow, but frantic gestures pleaded with me not to go further, tracing the cross, murmuring Satanists, and Vralok. Neighbors echoed her grim nods. She pressed a small silver crucifix into my hand, insisting it would protect me. My initial reaction was polite amusement, a modern Englishman confronted with rustic folly. Yet, as the cold metal settled, a faint shiver, not entirely from the mountain air, traced down my spine. The coach for the Borgo Pass awaited. As we ascended, the sun dipped, casting long, menacing shadows. The air grew colder, carrying pine and something wild. The forest closed in an impenetrable wall. Our driver, eyes darting into the gloom, lashed horses to a frantic pace. Their breath plumed white, straining uphill. The mountain silence yielded to hooves, coach creak, and the mournful howl of wolves, drawing ever nearer. The driver vanished roadside periodically, to reappear with renewed urgency. What he did or saw, I could not tell, but unease settled deep within me. Then, through the dusk, strange blue flames danced amongst the crags, appearing, vanishing. The driver crossed himself, muttering prayers, confirming my suspicion no ordinary phenomena. We neared the cusp of a world, where ancient fears held sway, where the veil between known and unknown grew thin. It was a journey into a darkness more profound than absence of light, to meet a man whose very existence challenged all I held rational. Chapter 2. The Count's guest. The carriage finally halted, not with a gentle sigh of worn springs, but a sudden, jarring lurch that sent a shiver through my already frayed nerves. Before me loomed the ancient, formidable structure of Castle Dracula, its battlements silhouetted against the dying embers of the Transylvanian sunset. The massive, nail-studded door creaked open, not by human hand, but by some unseen mechanism, revealing a tall, gaunt figure standing in the cavernous hallway. He was a tall old man, clean-shaven save for a long white mustache, clad in black from head to foot, without a single speck of color anywhere. His face was strong, a very strong, aquiline, with a high bridge to his thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils, a lofty domed forehead, and hair growing scantily around the temples, but profusely elsewhere. His eyebrows were very massive, almost meeting over the nose, so bushy they seemed to curl in their own density. The mouth, so far as I could see it beneath the heavy mustache, was fixed and rather cruel-looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth that protruded over the red of his lips. His ears were pale and at the top extremely pointed. The chin was strong and broad, but the cheeks were thin. The general effect was one of extraordinary pallor. But the hands! Those hands I shall never forget. They were rather coarse, broad, with squat fingers, and in the middle of the palm, surprisingly, there was hair. Strange indeed, and quite unlike any human hand I had ever clasped. As the days bled into one another within the castle's cold embrace, I began to notice a peculiar absence, a silent void that deepened my unease. There were no servants, none at all. The Count himself saw to my needs, appearing and disappearing with a stealth that defied his aged frame, carrying trays lighting lamps, yet never truly allowing me to see him perform these tasks. It was as if the castle itself served him, or perhaps it was merely an illusion, a trick of the eye. Even stranger still was the absolute lack of mirrors. Not one, in any room, reflecting my own perplexed face back at me. It was a detail I might have dismissed initially, but the pervasive absence grew to feel intentional, an unnerving void in what should have been common household objects. The climax of my apprehension came abruptly, terrifyingly, one morning as I shaved. The Count had entered my room with his characteristic silent tread, startling me. A quick, inadvertent movement, and the razor slipped, leaving a small, red bead of blood blossoming on my chin. Before I could even register the sting, the Count's eyes, hitherto cold and observing, blazed with a fiendish fury I can scarcely describe. His face, already pallid, became a mask of savage hunger. He sprang forward with an incredible swiftness, his hand reaching not for a towel, not for a bandage, but directly for my throat, his long, pointed fingernails glinting. It was a primal, horrifying lunge, driven by an instinct so dark and ancient it chilled me to my very bones. Only the swift interposition of the small silver crucifix I wore about my neck seemed to repel him. He recoiled instantly, his expression shifting from predatory rage to a look of utter loathing, a hiss escaping his lips as if the very touch of the sacred metal burned him. He snatched up the shaving glass, which until that moment had been lying innocently on my table, and flung it across the room with such force that it shattered against the far wall, leaving fragments scattered like stars. "Take care how you cut yourself!" he snarled, his voice a low growl. "It is more dangerous than you think in this country." With that, he turned and vanished as silently as he had arrived, leaving me trembling, the razor still clutched in my hand, my heart hammering like a trapped bird against my ribs. The broken mirror, the crimson drop of my own blood, these were signs I could no longer ignore. I was not a guest here. I was a prisoner, and my host was something else entirely. Chapter 3. The trap closes. The oppressive silence of Castle Dracula had begun to press down upon Jonathan Harker, not merely with its weight, but with a chilling, tangible presence that bespoke of something far more sinister than mere isolation. The Count's repeated admonitions, his strange habits, and most damningly, the discovery that the great outer door of the castle was always locked, had slowly, inexorably, begun to twist the very air Harker breathed into a thick, palpable dread. His growing unease had blossomed into a desperate need for answers, a frantic urge to test the boundaries of his confinement. He began, methodically, to explore. His own chamber, once a welcome refuge, now felt like a gilded cage. He tested its door, finding it, as always, firmly secured from the outside. A cold knot tightened in his stomach. He moved through the approved antechambers and dining halls, each step echoing his growing despair. Every door he tried, with increasing urgency, was locked, bolted, or entirely blocked by ancient, dust-shrouded furniture, as if the castle itself conspired to thwart him. The vastness of the place, once impressive, now felt like an elaborate prison designed solely for him. He was a rat in a labyrinth, and the maze was closing in. In a state of frantic desperation, propelled by a primal instinct for escape, Harker stumbled upon a corridor previously unremarked, leading away from the familiar, if limited, paths. A flicker of hope, however faint, spurred him onward. One door, unlike the others, gave way beneath his hand, opening into a grand, yet dimly lit and dust-laden apartment. Moonlight, weak and spectral, seeped through tall, mullioned windows, illuminating the decaying splendor within. It was here, in this forgotten opulence, that he first saw them. Three women, tall and slender, with an unearthly beauty that bordered on the grotesque. Their movements were languid, almost cat-like, their eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger that pierced the gloom. Two were dark, with aquiline noses and lips that seemed redder than any natural bloom. The third, fair, with golden hair and a dazzling, almost terrifying smile that revealed teeth too sharp, too long. They moved towards him with a chilling grace, their whispers like a hypnotic melody, promising a pleasure that held the very essence of terror. A strange, intoxicating desire mingled with his mounting fear as the fair woman, her eyes fixed on his throat, bent closer, her breath warm and sweet, yet carrying the faintest metallic tang. His blood quickened both in dread and an awful, mesmerized surrender as her lips, full and ripe, parted to reveal the sharp points of her fangs. He felt her touch cool and delicate on his skin, a shiver running through him that was both exquisite and horrifying. At that precise, unbearable moment, a terrible guttural roar ripped through the chamber, shattering the spell. It was the Count, his face contorted with a fury Harker had never witnessed, his eyes blazing like coals. He swept into the room with the force of a whirlwind, his powerful hand seizing the fair woman and flinging her back with astonishing violence. The other two recoiled, their predatory gleam replaced by a sullen, resentful fear. The Count stood before Harker, his imposing figure a bulwark against the three, yet simultaneously the ultimate confirmation of Harker's doom. "How dare you touch him?" Dracula hissed, his voice a low growl of thunder. "This man belongs to me." The words reverberated through the very stones of the castle, cold and absolute, stripping Harker of any remaining illusion. He was not merely a guest, not even an unwilling employee. He was property, a possession, and the true horror of his situation, the complete and utter closure of the trap, settled upon him with a final, crushing weight. He was utterly, hopelessly, alone and at the mercy of a monster whose dominion over him was absolute. Chapter 4. Desperate measures. The chilling certainty of my doom had settled deep within my bones. The castle, once a place of unsettling grandeur, was now a palpable tomb, and I, its sole living prisoner. The keys were gone, the doors locked, and the Count's predatory gaze haunted my waking thoughts. Driven by a frantic, gnawing desperation, I embarked on a final, desperate exploration, a search not for escape, but for understanding, for answers to the unspeakable horrors that held me captive. My journey led me through winding passages, down ancient, dust-laden stairs, until I found myself in the profound, glacial chill of the castle's lowest vaults. The air hung thick and heavy, smelling of damp earth and decay. My lantern cast flickering shadows that danced like specters across the stone walls, revealing row upon row of ominous wooden boxes. Then I saw it. Amidst the darkness, one of the great wooden chests stood open, its lid askew. My heart hammered against my ribs as I peered inside, and there, nestled amongst a foul, black earth, lay the Count. He was still utterly motionless, his face pallid as death itself, his lips a dark, cruel smear against his skin. There was no breath, no pulse, no flicker of life, yet his form seemed subtly rejuvenated, an unholy vigor permeating his stillness. He was not merely sleeping, he was inert, a vessel waiting for the shroud of night to rekindle his monstrous existence. The grim realization struck me with the force of a physical blow. This was not a man, but a creature of nightmare, a vampire, finding his unholy repose in the very soil of his blighted land. I stood transfixed, a primal terror gripping me, the urge to strike him then and there warring with a paralytic fear of his dormant, yet immense, power. I retreated, my mind reeling, my every nerve screaming. Through a narrow, hidden window high above, I watched, my dread mounting with each passing moment. Below, in the courtyard, a band of wild-looking Romany men bustled about, their faces dark and conspiratorial. They were loading the great wooden boxes, dozens of them, filled with that same unhallowed earth, onto heavy wagons. And then he appeared. The Count himself, no longer inert but vibrant with a malevolent energy, strode amongst them, giving orders, his eyes gleaming with a terrible, triumphant light. For a fleeting instant, his gaze seemed to sweep upwards, directly to my hidden vantage point, and in that moment, I knew I was truly lost. The wagons, laden with their unholy cargo, rumbled away, disappearing into the winding mountain pass, carrying Dracula to new hunting grounds. He had departed, leaving me behind, a solitary, forgotten meal in a now empty larder. The castle walls, once merely a prison, now felt like the jaws of a vast, insatiable beast. To remain was to embrace a lingering, agonizing death. There was only one impossible recourse, one desperate, suicidal gamble. I climbed to the highest battlements, gazing down into the dizzying abyss that yawned beneath the precipice. Far below, jagged rocks awaited, promising swift oblivion. My hands trembled, but my resolve hardened, better a quick end than the slow, terror-filled one that awaited me here. I found a treacherous overhang, a patch of clinging ivy, a few crumbling stones that offered precarious handholds. With a prayer on my lips and a desperate surge of adrenaline, I launched myself over the edge. Hand over aching hand, foot by agonizing foot, I began the descent. The wind whipped at me, the stones scraped my flesh raw, and the abyss below seemed to call my name. Every muscle screamed, every fiber of my being cried out in protest, but I pushed on, fueled by a terror far greater than the fear of falling. Finally, after what seemed an eternity of agony, my feet touched solid ground, albeit painfully. I was free, broken and battered, but gloriously, miraculously free, if only for a fleeting moment. Chapter 5 Letters from Home. Far from the ominous grandeur of Transylvania, the scene now shifts to England, to a world of softer light and more immediate, domestic concerns. Here, we find Mina Murray, a young woman of keen intelligence and deep affection, her heart heavy with a quiet anxiety for her absent fiancé, Jonathan Harker. Her days, however, are brightened by the frequent and effusive letters from her dearest friend, Lucy Westenra. Their correspondence forms a delicate counterpoint to the growing shadows across Europe, a tender exchange of confidences, hopes, and the vibrant stirrings of youth. Lucy, radiant and full of life, writes from the picturesque seaside town of Whitby, a place of ancient abbey ruins perched majestically above the North Sea, where the bracing winds carry the scent of salt and heather. Her letters bubble with the joy of her surroundings, describing the dramatic cliffs, the bustling harbor, and the tranquil beauty of the sunsets over the vast expanse of water. But it is not merely the landscape that occupies Lucy's spirited thoughts, for her heart, too, is a landscape of delightful complications. For Lucy, it seems, is blessed, or perhaps burdened, with an abundance of admirers. 3 gentlemen of considerable merit vie for her affections, a trio whose differing characters paint a vivid portrait of London society. There is, first, the noble and steadfast Arthur Holmwood, a man of gentle breeding and profound sincerity, the clear frontrunner for Lucy's hand and heart. Then, the ruggedly charming American Quincy Morris, whose adventurous spirit and warm humor make him a delightful, if persistent, suitor. And finally, Dr. John Seward, a brilliant, dedicated physician, superintendent of a lunatic asylum, whose intellectual fervor and slightly melancholic intensity offer a different kind of appeal. Lucy, in her innocent exuberance, often recounts the gentle dances of their courtships, her innocent heart torn between admiration and affection, yet ultimately leaning towards the steady promise of Arthur. As Lucy's letters arrive, bringing with them echoes of Whitby's charm and the innocent romance of her life, a subtle change begins to creep into the atmosphere. The gentle summer breeze that once ruffled her hair now seems to carry a whispered urgency. The bright blue skies, though still present, are increasingly punctuated by gathering clouds and indigo brews spreading along the horizon. The very air takes on a chill, and the distant rumble of the waves against the shore grows louder, more insistent, speaking not of tranquility, but of a brewing tempest. A sense of unease, indistinct yet palpable, begins to settle over the idyllic coastal town, a quiet foreshadowing of the dramatic events poised to crash upon its shores, much like the gathering storm itself. Chapter 6, The Gathering Storm in Dr. Seward's Asylum, R.M. Renfield presented a unique, unsettling case. Diagnosed with zoophagous monomania, his diet was a macabre spectacle: flies, then spiders graduating to sparrows, and even small cats. He believed consuming life force, absorbing vital essence, would strengthen him, a power he intended to offer to his unseen master. Renfield's obsession with this approaching master was escalating rapidly. He spoke of him with a feverish glint in his eyes, a blend of ecstatic fear and fanaticism. His periods of lucidity were mere interludes between violent outbursts or unsettling devotion, always directed towards this impending presence. The air around him hummed with an unspoken anticipation, a sense of cosmic doom that only he perceived, yet it permeated the asylum's stone walls. He'd stare out his window, muttering prophecies of a vast arriving darkness. His frenetic energy felt like a terrible, twisted preparation. Far from the asylum, Mina Murray wrestled with a different gathering storm. The unnatural silence from Jonathan, her beloved, had become an unbearable weight. Weeks of terrifying emptiness stretched since his last hurried letter from Transylvania. Her letters to Lucy, once hopeful, now carried growing dread, a desperate plea for news that never came. Each wordless day deepened the canyon of fear in her heart. Inquiries to solicitors and employers brought only unhelpful assurances. She tried to cling to hope, but gnawing anxiety was a relentless companion, a chilling whisper of foreboding. Their marriage anticipation was consumed by creeping terror, a presentiment that some dark force had intervened, severing their connection. The storm was gathering, not just in Renfield's troubled mind, but in Mina's desolate heart, presaging a darkness soon to reach them all. Chapter 7, The Ghost Ship. The wild, tempestuous night had reached its zenith in Whitby. The very air thick with salt spray and the roar of the North Sea wind howled through the narrow streets, rattling windows and tearing at the fishing boats moored precariously in the harbor. It was into this maelstrom that an unexpected, terrifying spectacle unfolded. Out of the churning, ink-black chaos of the waves, a ship, a true derelict, was sighted, its sails in tatters, its rigging a ghostly web against the bruised sky. It was the Russian schooner, the Demeter, sailing from Varna, a ship that carried a cargo far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. The first whispers of dread aboard the Demeter had begun weeks earlier, meticulously documented in the captain's log, a chilling record we are now privy to. June 17th, Varna. All cargo aboard, cleared for sea fair weather. God's blessing on our voyage. A hopeful start, swiftly overshadowed. June 24th, Black Sea crew uneasy. One man claims to have seen a tall, thin man on deck at night, where no one should be. Superstition, I told him, but his fear was real. The captain, a brave and seasoned seaman, initially dismissed the growing unease among his crew as mere sailor's fancy. But the unease festered, an insidious poison, as the inexplicable became undeniable. June 29th, off Bosphorus. My second mate, Petrovsky, missing. Vanished from his watch without a trace. The men are terrified. They speak of a presence, a shadow that stalks the ship. The disappearances escalated, each leaving behind not a body, but an unbearable vacuum of absence. One by one, the sturdy, superstitious crew of the Demeter dwindled. A seaman would go below to fetch something, and never return. A lookout would stand his watch, only for the next shift to find his post deserted, the air still humming with an unspoken horror. Each man's disappearance was a fresh wound, a new notch in the captain's spiraling despair. He became a prisoner on his own ship, haunted by an unseen entity, the sole sentinel witnessing the demise of his entire company. July 6th, Mediterranean, 2 more gone. This is no mortal agency, there is something on board, something evil. I hear noises at night, a scratching, a rustling, a low growl that makes the blood run cold. I am alone now, save for my dog, who whines incessantly at the hold ***. July 14th. Approaching Gibraltar. I have lashed myself to the helm. The wind is rising. The thing that came aboard has killed all my men. It hunts at night. I hear its footsteps. It is coming for me next ***, and then silence. The log's frantic entries ceased. The Demeter, an empty tomb, was left to the mercy of the elements. Back in Whitby, the storm had reached its peak, whipping the waves into monstrous peaks. With a horrifying shriek of tortured timber and a deafening crash that echoed through the very bones of the cliffs, the Demeter was hurled against Tate Hill Pier. Mast splintered, hull groaned, and the vessel listed violently, tearing itself apart on the jagged rocks. As the townsfolk watched, frozen in a mix of terror and morbid fascination, a sight emerged from the shattered wreckage that would forever sear itself into their memory. From the gaping maw of the ship's hold, amidst the flying spray and the groaning wood, a creature of immense power launched itself. It was a dog, colossal, its fur as black as pitch, its eyes glinting with an unholy intelligence in the flashes of lightning. With a powerful, effortless leap, it cleared the crumbling pier and landed with a thud on the shore, disappearing instantly into the swirling chaos of the storm-lashed night, a phantom of the tempest, leaving behind only the wrecked ship and a chilling echo of dread. Chapter 8, The Midnight Shadow, The Quiet of Whitby. Once a bomb, now frayed for Mina Harker. Nights felt charged with an inexplicable tension, a whisper of something unseen. One moonlit evening, Mina awoke, a sudden chill upon her. An unsettling quiet now permeated their shared room, for Lucy's bed lay empty. A cold knot of fear tightened in Mina's stomach. Lucy, prone to sleepwalking, had wandered. Donning her dressing gown, Mina stole from the room, heart hammering, embarking on a desperate, silent search. The trail led, as if by dark magnetic pull, to the old churchyard perched above the churning sea. The air grew colder, heavy with salt and ancient stone. Mina's bare feet hurried past spectral marble monuments. Silence, broken only by the mournful cry of gulls and distant waves, enveloped the graves. Her wide, apprehensive eyes swept the expanse until they fixed upon a dreadful sight near the cliff's edge. Upon a worn stone bench ominously known as the suicide seat, lay Lucy Westenra. But Lucy was not alone. Looming over her, a gaunt, impossibly tall, dark form bent with terrible, possessive intent. Shrouded in unearthly shadow, a void against the silvered night, its face, if discernible, was obscured from Mina's view. Ice-cold horror paralyzed Mina. She watched, transfixed, as the dark silhouette pressed closer to Lucy's vulnerable throat. Then, with a guttural cry born of pure terror, Mina rushed forward. The shadowy presence, disturbed by her approach, vanished with a speed defying the natural world, melting into the deeper shadows amongst the ancient graves. Mina reached Lucy, still and alarmingly pale, held by a profound, unnatural slumber. Her breath was shallow, her skin chillingly cold to the touch. With trembling hands, Mina tried to rouse her. As she did, her gaze fell upon Lucy's delicate throat. On the alabaster skin, beneath her nightdress collar, were 2 small, red puncture marks, almost imperceptible pinpricks. They were close together, barely an inch apart, and around them, the skin was slightly inflamed. A shiver, colder than the midnight air, ran through Mina. She tried to dismiss them, to attribute them to some thorn or insect bite, but an instinctual primal dread whispered a far more terrible truth. Gathering the still sleeping Lucy, Mina began the arduous journey back, a chilling mystery etched onto Lucy's vulnerable neck. Chapter 9, The diagnosis. A dreadful pall began to settle over Lucy Westenra. The vibrant bloom of her youth was now a distant memory, replaced by an alarming, deathly pallor. Her skin, once soft and rosy, became translucent, almost alabaster, hinting at a profound, internal depletion. Dr. Seward, ever diligent, monitored her, but each passing day brought only further perplexity and despair. The most disturbing symptom was the relentless blood loss, not from any visible wound, not from a rupture his keen medical eye could discern. It was as if her very essence was being siphoned away, slowly, inexorably, from within. She grew weaker by the hour, her breath shallow, her voice a mere whisper. She faded visibly, a tragic portrait of life slowly draining away, leaving behind only the ghost of her former self. The nurses moved about her room, their faces mirroring Dr. Seward's mounting dread. Dr. Seward, despite his extensive training, found himself utterly out of his depth. Every conventional treatment failed, every diagnosis proved inadequate. The logical pathways of medicine offered no answers, only dead ends. In his growing desperation, a name surfaced from the depths of his professional memory: Professor Abraham Van Helsing. His old master, a man of profound intellect, vast experience, and an uncanny ability to delve into the most obscure corners of human suffering, was his last, best hope. Without hesitation, he dispatched an urgent telegram, pleading for Van Helsing's immediate presence. The gravity of the situation demanded nothing less than the most extraordinary mind he knew. Van Helsing arrived with quiet intensity, a formidable presence. His keen eyes, sharp and intelligent, swept over the scene, taking in Lucy's wasted form and Dr. Seward's strained face. He wasted no time, his first words a precise query about the illness's timeline. His examination of Lucy was thorough, methodical, yet possessed of an almost intuitive sensitivity. He palpated, listened, observed, his brow furrowed in concentration. He paid particular attention to her throat and neck, his fingers lingering on an area that seemed, to the untrained eye, entirely unblemished. But Van Helsing's gaze was not untrained. A subtle hardening of his features, a barely perceptible tightening of his lips, bespoke an immediate, profound concern. He looked up, his eyes meeting Dr. Seward's with an intensity that brooked no argument. There was a knowledge in those eyes, an understanding of something far more sinister than any common malady, something that whispered of ancient, terrifying truths. His silence, following his initial assessment, was heavy with an unspoken dread that instantly communicated the immense, perilous nature of the challenge before them. Chapter 10. Blood is the life. The air in Lucy's room hung thick with palpable dread, punctuated only by her shallow, struggling breaths. Her skin, once vibrant, was an alabaster mask, her lips faded. Dr. Van Helsing, grim-faced, declared there was but one chance. Arthur, Lucy's beloved, did not hesitate. "Take my blood," he pleaded. Van Helsing prepared the instruments. Silence fell as life-giving current, vibrant and warm, began its journey from Arthur's arm into Lucy's faltering veins. A profound act of love, a primal transfer of life. Slowly, agonizingly, a faint flush returned to Lucy's cheeks, a whisper of vitality rekindled. Van Helsing, wiping his brow, muttered, "Blood is the life, blood is the life." But the Dutch professor's methods, though effective, were peculiar. Having drawn Lucy back, he decreed her room be transformed. Garland after garland of garlic flower, their sharp, potent aroma filling every corner, was hung about the bed, draped over windows, scattered across the floor. Arthur and Dr. Seward exchanged bewildered glances. Such an archaic remedy seemed incongruous with modern science. Yet Van Helsing's eyes held unshakable conviction. With hope and bewilderment they complied. The air grew heavy with the sharp scent, a strange guardian against an unseen horror. For a time peace settled. Lucy, though weak, slept more soundly, cradled by the strange, floral barrier. Exhausted, everyone retired, believing vigilance had won the night. But in the small hours, an innocent hand unwittingly undid their careful work. The nurse, fresh on duty, found the garlic's scent cloying, perhaps offensive. Believing it a whim, or that the strong smell impeded recovery, she carefully removed every bloom. Every protective garland, every scattered clove was taken away, leaving the windows unadorned, the bedside bare. In the deepest hours, Lucy Westenra lay sleeping, seemingly secure, but unknowingly stripped of her defense, utterly vulnerable to whatever predatory force now moved silently in the darkness. The house slept, unaware of the terrifying vacuum created. Chapter 11. The Wolf's Entry. The city of London, battered by an unforgiving tempest, lay shrouded in a darkness more profound than mere nightfall. Rain lashed against windows, and the wind, a mournful banshee, screamed through chimney stacks, twisting ordinary sounds into something sinister and unsettling. It was against this backdrop of elemental fury that a creature of formidable power, known to the staff of the zoological gardens as Berserker, made its audacious bid for freedom. This was no ordinary wolf. Its lineage spoke of an ancient, untamed wilderness, and its immense frame, coupled with eyes that gleamed with an almost preternatural cunning, had long set it apart. On this particular night, spurred by an unknown, primal instinct, or perhaps by a more insidious, unseen will, Berserker unleashed a burst of strength that defied its heavy enclosure. With a primal snarl and a desperate heave, bolts gave way, a gate groaned, and the formidable beast melted into the tumultuous night, a shadow among shadows. Unseen, unheard by the few watchmen cowering from the storm, the great wolf navigated the deserted streets, a dark, swift predator drawn by an unseen magnet. Its destination, whether by design or diabolical guidance, was the quiet suburban house where Lucy Westenra lay in her fragile slumber, oblivious to the gathering storm both outside and within the very fabric of her existence. Inside, a strange, heavy sleep had inexplicably claimed the household staff. Cook, parlor-maid, and housemaid alike had succumbed to an unnatural drowsiness, their senses dulled, their alarms silenced before they could even stir. A heavy, cloying scent, subtle yet potent, lingered in the air of their quarters, betraying the deliberate hand that had lulled them into oblivion. Lucy's mother, a woman of delicate constitution, also slept fitfully, her usual anxieties deepened by the storm, but her protective instincts rendered inert by a similar insidious influence. Then, the night shattered. A sudden, thunderous crash ripped through the hushed terror of the house, so violent and unexpected it seemed to tear at the very fabric of silence. The drawing room window, a grand expanse of Victorian glass, exploded inwards, showering splinters and jagged shards across the ornate carpet. And there, framed against the raging tempest, a terrifying silhouette momentarily loomed, the massive, dripping form of Berserker, its eyes gleaming with an eerie predatory light, its fangs bared in a silent snarl of triumph. The raw, primal shock of that intrusion was too much for Lucy's mother. Awoken abruptly from her drugged sleep by the cataclysmic sound, her fragile heart simply gave way. A gasp, a choked cry that never fully formed, and the poor lady's eyes, wide with terror, stared sightlessly into the darkness. She was gone, a casualty of the sudden, brutal intrusion, her life extinguished not by tooth or claw, but by the sheer, unadulterated horror of a nightmare made real. The house, so recently a bastion of gentle order, was now a scene of violation, its defenses breached, its inhabitants laid low, and the shadow of the wolf, and the deeper darkness it portended, firmly cast within its walls. Chapter 12. The final decline. The darkness that had long hovered at the edges of Lucy Westenra's fading life now began to close in, relentlessly, irrevocably. Despite the concerted efforts of the dedicated men who loved her, despite the repeated transfusions that had drained them almost as much as they had temporarily buoyed her, Lucy was slipping away. Her breathing grew more labored, a shallow, rattling sound that filled the room with the grim music of impending demise. Each gasping breath was a struggle, a visible testament to the unseen forces consuming her. In a final, desperate attempt to defy the encroaching shadow, Professor Van Helsing prepared for one last transfusion. Quincy P. Morris, ever the stoic and self-sacrificing cowboy, stepped forward without a word. His face was pale, drawn from exhaustion and the profound anxiety that clung to them all, but his eyes held a steady resolve. The process was agonizingly familiar now, a ritual of despair. As his strong, healthy blood flowed into Lucy's weakened veins, there was a fleeting, almost imperceptible tremor of life that seemed to pass through her. A flicker of color, a momentary lessening of the ghastly pallor. For a brief, heartbreaking instant, a whisper of hope dared to stir in the room. But it was a cruel illusion. As the minutes ticked by, the fleeting warmth of life faded, replaced by something far more chilling. The gentle, innocent beauty that had defined Lucy began to warp, subtly at first, then with increasing horror. Her features, once soft and inviting, sharpened with an unnatural intensity. The delicate curve of her lips thinned, and when her mouth parted slightly in a faint, involuntary sigh, the others saw it. Her canine teeth, once demure and perfectly aligned, had elongated, becoming distinctly pointed, almost fang-like. They gleamed faintly in the dim gaslight, catching the light with an unsettling, predatory glint. A strange, cruel expression, utterly alien to the sweet Lucy they knew and loved, settled upon her face, a grimace that held an almost malevolent triumph, a hunger that sent shivers down their spines. It was as if another entity, cold and ancient, had begun to assert itself, twisting her beloved visage into a mask of terrifying power. The air grew heavy with a palpable dread. Then, with a sudden, dreadful finality, Lucy's breath hitched, a guttural sound that tore through the silence. Her body arched, a momentary surge of unnatural strength before collapsing back onto the pillows. Arthur, Lord Godalming, his heart breaking, leaned close to his dying fiancée, his face contorted in agony, whispering her name, pleading with her to stay. He bent to kiss her, to offer one last embrace of love and solace. But as his lips drew near, her eyes, previously glazed and distant, snapped open, blazing with a terrible, unholy light. A sudden, monstrous strength surged through her emaciated frame. With a terrifying swiftness, she lunged upwards, not for a kiss but for his throat. Her now sharpened teeth, white and gleaming, were bared, poised to strike, a savage hunger burning in her gaze. It was Van Helsing's lightning-fast reaction that saved Arthur. The professor, ever vigilant, ever understanding of the true horrors at play, seized Lucy by the shoulders, pulling her back with immense force, just as her fangs grazed Arthur's neck. A low, frustrated growl, not human, vibrated in her throat. For a moment she struggled, a demonic strength warring against Van Helsing's grip, her eyes fixed on Arthur with an insatiable longing. But the struggle was short-lived. The unnatural strength waned as quickly as it had come. A shudder ran through her, her body went limp, and her eyes, still wide and staring, fixed on some unseen point beyond them all. And then, she was gone. The cruel, predatory expression softened, dissolving into the peaceful, innocent repose that had been Lucy's own. The sharp teeth, however, remained, an enduring, chilling testament to the terrifying transformation. A profound, aching silence descended upon the room, broken only by the choked sobs of the men. Grief, raw and overwhelming, washed over them, yet intertwined with it was a cold, creeping horror, the unsettling knowledge of the monstrous thing Lucy had almost become in her final, tortured moments. They had lost her, truly lost her, in a way far more terrible than any natural death could ever inflict. Chapter 13. The undead. The world felt irrevocably altered after Lucy Westenra's premature interment. A shadow, colder than mere grief, settled over those who loved her. Mina Murray, however, was called away from England's sorrow. Urgent, disquieting news of Jonathan Harker's precarious state reached her from Budapest. His miraculous escape from Dracula's castle had left him shattered, his mind a labyrinth of horrors. With a heart heavy with grief for Lucy and worry for Jonathan, Mina embarked on the arduous journey. She found him in profound shock, his vibrant eyes haunted, his speech fractured, his memories a vortex of terror. He clutched his journal, a testament to his ordeal, yet seemed unable to articulate its depths. Mina, with boundless tenderness and resolve, dedicated herself to nursing him, patiently coaxing him back from madness. She listened, she soothed, a steadfast beacon in his darkness, painstakingly helping him reassemble his shattered mind. Yet, back in London's gaslit streets, an unsettling drama unfolded, unknown to Mina. Professor Van Helsing, despite conventional burial rites, was far from convinced Lucy Westenra lay at peace. His keen scientific mind, burdened with ancient knowledge, whispered of unspeakable possibilities. He studied Lucy's serene corpse, noting details he shared with no one, observing her grave with a gaze that saw beyond the surface. He spoke in riddles to Arthur, hinting at a monstrous truth: Lucy was not merely gone, but somehow changed. He watched, he waited, a grim sentinel against a horror few could conceive. Then, as if in answer to Van Helsing's unspoken dread, whispers escalated into alarming newspaper reports. Children in Hampstead were found weak, pale, with 2 tiny, mysterious puncture marks on their throats. The peculiar attacks, always at night, left victims drained and listless, yet rarely fatal. Baffled and terrified, the common folk spoke of a phantom presence, a beautiful, alluring, deadly lady preying upon the young. They called her, with chilling fear and twisted affection, the Bloofer Lady. These stories, initially dismissed, grew more frequent, more vivid, weaving a tapestry of terror beyond Lucy's tomb, suggesting the grave had not held its own. The darkness, it seemed, had only just begun to truly bloom. Chapter 14. Compiling the evidence. The study hummed with the soft, insistent click of the typewriter, a rhythmic pulse set by Mina Harker. Around her, a chaotic mosaic: Jonathan's frantic journal, Dr. Seward's phonograph transcriptions, telegrams, cryptic notes. Mina, a quiet force of intellect and will, was the architect of their understanding. She painstakingly transformed fragmented entries into a coherent whole, her nimble fingers weaving threads of terror into a single chilling narrative. Each typed word, each aligned page, brought revelation, a testament to her unwavering resolve. She wasn't just transcribing, she was synthesizing, building formidable evidence from the unspeakable. When the thick dossier, bristling with typed precision, landed on Professor Van Helsing's desk, he approached it with clinical analysis. Yet, as he immersed himself in Jonathan's journal, the meticulous accounts of imprisonment in Dracula's castle, the horrific visions of the 3 vampire women, the Count's chilling power, a profound shift occurred. His initial detachment fractured, replaced by dawning horror and unsettling validation. He read of Jonathan's terror, his desperate escape, his mind teetering. Van Helsing, with his vast knowledge, recognized not delusion, but profound trauma, an undeniable testament to unspeakable evil. Every detail, once dismissed, now resonated with terrifying truth, its icy grip extending to their own shores. As Van Helsing delved deeper, from Jonathan's testimony to events surrounding Lucy Westenra's agonizing decline, a terrifying pattern coalesced. Newspaper reports detailing the Bloofer Lady, a spectral figure preying on children with strange, pinprick wounds, were placed beside Dr. Seward's observations of Lucy. The bite marks on her throat, The mysterious blood loss, her unsettling transformation, the disturbing beauty of her deceased form, it all clicked with horrifying clarity. The Bloofer Lady, this unseen menace, was no separate horror. The professor's keen intellect forged the chilling, undeniable connection. Lucy Westenra, sweet, innocent Lucy, was not truly at rest. She was the Bloofer Lady, resurrected, a grotesque echo of Dracula's insidious power, preying on children she once cherished. The fight was against both ancient evil and its terrifying progeny. Chapter 15. The empty tomb, the chill of the night air, keen and cutting, bit deep as Van Helsing led the way. Dr. Seward, still grappling with a disquiet born of fatigue and a growing unease, followed with a heavy heart. The moon, a spectral, gibbous orb, cast long, distorted shadows across the ancient stones of the churchyard, transforming familiar monuments into grotesque sentinels. A dense mist, clinging low to the ground, coiled around their ankles like grasping fingers, enhancing the spectral atmosphere. It was a pilgrimage into the heart of the improbable, a journey that Seward's logical mind fought tooth and nail. Van Helsing, his face set in a mask of grim determination, carried a lantern whose feeble glow did little to dispel the oppressive gloom. He spoke little, his silence more profound than any words, punctuated only by the crunch of their boots on the gravel path. They reached the sepulchre, a mausoleum of cold marble, its dark archway yawning like a mouth into the abyss. With a rusty groan, the heavy iron door yielded to Van Helsing's key, revealing an interior of profound, inky blackness. The air within was stagnant, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, a chill far deeper than the night outside. Inside, the lantern beam danced across the names of the Westenra family, etched into the walls, before settling on the new, polished coffin, Lucy's. Seward felt a fresh wave of grief, mingled now with a creeping dread that he could not name. Van Helsing motioned for him to approach. With a shared, agonizing effort that they lifted the heavy lid, and then, a gasp, sharp and involuntary, tore from Seward's throat. The coffin was empty. His eyes, straining in the dim light, darted over the velvet lining, tracing every fold, every shadow. It was undeniable. Lucy Westenra was not there. The polished wood, the satin interior, all pristine, undisturbed, yet utterly void of the beloved form it was meant to contain. A cold sweat broke out on Seward's brow, his mind reeling, desperately searching for a rational explanation that simply refused to materialize. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the tomb. Madness, he thought, utter madness. The long night crawled to an end, leaving Seward shaken to his core, a man whose perception of reality had been irrevocably fractured. As dawn's weak light began to penetrate the mist, painting the horizon in sickly hues of gray and faint rose, the terrible confirmation arrived. Returning to the churchyard, their steps still heavy with the night's revelation, they found it. Tucked amongst the dew-kissed tombstones, a small pale child lay utterly still, save for the shallow, ragged breaths that barely stirred its chest. Its face was bloodless, its lips a ghastly white, and on its throat 2-minute, crimson pinpricks, stark against the waxy skin. A chilling echo of others found before, each with that same dreadful mark. The truth, stark and undeniable, hit Seward with the force of a physical blow. Lucy, sweet, innocent Lucy. The empty tomb, the ravaged child, the pieces clicked into place with a terrifying, irrefutable finality. He stared at the sleeping child, then back at the mausoleum, and a cold, mortal horror truly began to settle upon his soul. Chapter 16. The release. The air hung heavy and cold around them as the four men converged upon the graveyard, their purpose grim, hearts laden with sorrow. Beneath the moon, they stood before Lucy's tomb, a stark monument to love and duty. A low, unearthly moan pierced the stillness, something stirring within. Slowly, the heavy slab of the tomb shifted, grinding stone. From the darkness she emerged, a terrifying beauty, clad in white, eyes gleaming with unholy light, lips ghastly crimson. This was not the Lucy they knew. In her arms, she cradled a small, pale child, its innocence defiled. With chilling indifference, she cast the lifeless form aside. Her gaze, predatory and triumphant, swept over them, lingering on Arthur. A mocking, seductive smile played on her blood-stained lips, promising an eternity of corruption. A guttural cry of profound agony tore from Arthur's throat. His beloved now a monstrous parody, a fiend feeding on the helpless. He stood paralyzed, torn between enduring love and horrifying truth. Van Helsing's stern voice shattered the terror. Arthur, this is no longer your Lucy. This is a devil. You must set her free, for her eternal soul. With a strangled sob, Arthur stumbled forward, his face a mask of resolute despair. He grasped the sharpened stake. His heart broke, but his will, forged by true love, demanded this final, brutal act of mercy. He looked at the beautiful, terrible creature, and with strength born of unimaginable sorrow, brought the stake down. A piercing, unearthly shriek tore through the night, a sound of ultimate agony that ripped the very fabric of existence. The body writhed, contorted, eyes bulging in a terrible paroxysm. A gurgling sound rose from her throat, mixed with blood as the stake plunged deep. Then, as suddenly as it began, it ceased. A profound peace, a hallowed stillness, settled upon her features. The demon's grip was broken. Lucy was free. But the ritual was not complete. Quincy Morris and Dr. Seward, grim-faced, stepped forward. With swift movements, an axe rose and fell, severing the head with a sickening thud. The last vestiges of unholy power faded. Then, with careful hands, garlic cloves were packed into her mouth, a potent barrier against evil. The head reunited with the body, the tomb sealed once more, with sacred, inviolable finality. The men stood exhausted, yet a profound, solemn relief washed over them. Lucy was truly at peace. Arthur, kneeling by the sealed tomb, wept openly, tears of grief and of a terrible, necessary love. He had released her, broken the chain of evil, and saved her soul from an eternity of damnation. Chapter 17. The alliance forms. The air in Dr. Seward's study pulsed with grave purpose. Jonathan Harker, pale but resolute, sat beside his steadfast wife, Mina. Lord Godalming, his noble features etched with grief, now showed fierce resolve. Quincy Morris, the intrepid American, leaned forward, keen eyes ready. Dr. Seward, accustomed to science, faced a horror beyond his ken. At the head, Professor Van Helsing, his face grave, guided their reunion. Each man brought a fragment of nightmare too terrible alone. Jonathan's journal, penned in Dracula's castle, spoke of prisoner and predator. Dr. Seward's notes detailed Lucy's decline and Renfield's madness. Van Helsing, from Arcane Study, named the terror *Nosferatu*. Arthur and Quincy, through harrowing encounters, added observations of unnatural strength and monstrous hunger. Individually, these accounts were harrowing, disparate threads. But Mina Harker, with her remarkable intellect, would weave them into a coherent, horrifying tapestry. Amidst scattered papers, journals, telegrams, letters, clippings, she worked with industrious focus. Her nimble fingers moved, her sharp mind absorbing every detail, date, and place. Transcribing, she organized chaotic narratives into a single cohesive timeline, a chilling panorama unfolding. Mina's clarity, discerning patterns where others saw confusion, was miraculous. She cross-referenced accounts, highlighting discrepancies, confirming chilling patterns, transforming individual terrors into shared truth. Her calm, precise summaries, delivered with unflinching courage, illuminated Dracula's terrifying scope. Through her tireless efforts, the scattered pieces of their nightmare snapped into place, revealing a coherent narrative of immense power and malevolent cunning, now loose upon London. As she laid out the complete story, from Jonathan's imprisonment to Lucy's tragic demise, the crushing weight of their enemy's evil settled upon the room. A shared gasp of dawning horror swept through the men, followed by fierce, unifying resolve. Dracula was not merely a threat, he was a strategic living plague. Mina, the quiet intellectual, brought them to this profound, terrifying understanding. She was the glue holding this fledgling alliance, the illuminating force defining their amorphous fear. Through her, they understood their common enemy, charted his sinister course, discerned his ambition. In that moment, they ceased to be disparate individuals. They became a single, determined force, bound by sacred purpose to hunt the hunter, to cast out the ancient darkness, and protect the innocent. The war against Dracula had truly begun. Chapter 18. The Zoophagous insight. The air in the asylum room crackled with an unusual tension. Renfield, often lost in his insectivorous reveries, now sat before them, a stark and terrifying clarity in his eyes. This was not the man who hunted flies. This was a soul in torment, burdened by knowledge too vast and too dark for his fragile mind. He pleaded, his voice a ragged whisper, a raw cry torn from the depths of his being. "You must release me! My soul, it's in danger! He comes at night, he takes from me, and if I stay, I am damned forever! He has power, terrible power, and I am his slave. Let me go, please, before it is too late! My life means nothing, but my soul is at stake!" The terror in his gaze was palpable, a testament to the unseen horror that haunted his waking nightmares, and as they now understood, his waking reality. His desperate plea was not madness, but a desperate, lucid cry for salvation. Professor Van Helsing, his expression grim but illuminated by a sudden, profound understanding, then spoke. "What our poor Renfield fears is real, my friends. He has been a vessel, a source of power, an unwitting sentinel for the undead. But his terror also reveals much about our foe." Van Helsing paused, gathering his thoughts, before delivering his chilling assessment. "This Dracula, he is strong, ancient, cunning beyond human measure. He can command beasts, manipulate shadows, drain life itself. Yet, for all his power, his intellect is, in many ways, that of a child. A very clever child, yes, but a child nonetheless. He understands primal urges, survival, dominance. He lacks the deeper complexities of human emotion, the nuances of genuine love or profound mercy. He is driven by instinct, by a ravenous hunger, by a base desire for control. This makes him predictable in his unpredictability, vulnerable in his apparent invincibility. He acts without long-term foresight, grasping for immediate satisfaction. This is his strength, but also his greatest weakness. The professor then laid out the terrifying truth of their situation and the desperate plan forward. We know he travels with his native earth, his sanctified ground. 50 boxes were shipped from Varna, now scattered throughout London. These boxes are his anchors, his resting places, his sources of power, his means of escape. We must find them, all 50. Each must be located, and each must be cleansed, sanctified, made unholy to him. Only by denying him his rest, his refuge, can we truly corner him. It is a race against time, a hunt across this vast city to strip him of his very foundation. Failure means not only our doom, but the eternal damnation of those he has touched. Chapter 19. The Carfax infiltration. The twilight deepened as our grim company arrived at Carfax, a crumbling stone edifice exhaling a palpable chill. Its ancient walls rose starkly against the fading light, shadowed and brooding. Professor Van Helsing, his face etched with resolve, gestured towards a heavy, oak-bound door. With the combined efforts of Quincy P. Morris, crowbar in hand, and Jonathan Harker, the ancient portal groaned, then gave way with a resounding thud. A profound darkness lay within. We stepped across the threshold, our boots crunching on dust, into a vast, unlit hall. The air hung heavy, thickening with an utterly abominable stench. This was a miasma of ancient decay, a cloying putrid sweetness of death and earth, mixed with something indefinably fouler, clinging to the very stones. A reek that assaulted the nose and clawed at the throat, tightening every nerve with instinctive dread. Our lamp struggled against the gloom. From the shadows came a sound, a rustling, a scuttling, a creeping multitude of tiny movements growing swiftly. A low, chittering chorus promising an infestation. As our beams pierced the space, the horror revealed itself. The floor was alive. Thousands upon thousands of rats, a veritable tide of vermin, swarmed from every crack, their tiny, red eyes gleaming malevolently, their bodies a writhing, living carpet. They poured forth with unnatural speed, their grotesque numbers threatening to engulf us. A collective gasp, a momentary paralysis. Then the low growls of Van Helsing's 2 magnificent wolf hounds, held on leashes, erupted into a furious, guttural chorus. Their hackles rose, bodies straining, barks echoing. With a fierce snarl, Van Helsing released them. They sprang forward, 2 blurs of protective fury barking and lunging into the oncoming tide. The rats, though countless, recoiled from the savage onslaught, their chittering turning to panicked squeals. They scattered, a dark, liquid wave retreating before the hound's ferocity, disappearing back into the impenetrable shadows. The sudden flight left an eerie quietude, broken only by the dogs panting and our ragged breaths. For a moment, we were safe, though the vile stench lingered, a grim reminder of the darkness still awaiting us. Chapter 20. The patient's warning. The night's unspoken dread solidified into a tangible terror as we hurried through the asylum's hushed corridors. Dr. Seward, Van Helsing, and I, hearts pounding, were drawn by a chilling thud, then an unnatural silence from Renfield's room. The door, usually locked, now stood ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning. A sickening metallic stench, cloying and ancient, assailed us before we fully entered. Inside, unimaginable horror. Renfield lay crumpled, a broken doll cast aside, eyes wide with unseen terror. His limbs were twisted, his back broken, a grotesque protrusion beneath his nightshirt. Worse, his skull was horribly fractured, a dreadful impact leaving a ghastly crater. He was barely breathing, shallow, ragged gasps marking his fading life. Van Helsing, ever practical, knelt. "He is near the end," he murmured, grim understanding in his voice. We pressed him, urgent whispers pleading for truth. Renfield, with superhuman effort, struggled to articulate, his words a desperate gurgling whisper. "The master he came, I let him in." The chilling admission hung heavy. He spoke of the window, of the master's insidious promises of little lives for obedience. He'd been tricked, lured by madness, unbarring the window for the monstrous visitor. But the Bloofer lady, a term too familiar from Mayna's troubled sleep, had appeared with the master. The reward was not what he expected. Instead, he was used, then discarded. His body broken, mind shattered. He'd tried to protect Mina. He choked out, fought back when he realized the true horror, but it was too late. The master had thrown him, smashed him against the wall with unimaginable force. His confession was a torrent of terror and regret, a dying man's desperate attempt to undo his fatal error, to warn us of the doom he'd unleashed. As his voice faded, his final breath rattling, a cold, undeniable truth dawned. If Renfield had invited Dracula if the monster had just been here, then where was he now? Renfield's last words painted a terrifying picture, not just his demise, but an imminent, greater danger. The master was here, the asylum, and Mina, our dear Mina, was alone, vulnerable, undefended. A shared glance, a silent, terrible understanding ignited desperate urgency. Dracula was not just a threat, he was an immediate, present horror unleashed. With frantic energy, we turned, abandoning the gruesome scene, our minds fixed on one terrifying thought: Mina's room. Chapter 21. The blood baptism, the desperate shouts of Van Helsing, Dr. Seward, Lord Godalming, and Quincy Morris tore through the silent corridors, shattering the house's fragile peace. A dreadful premonition drove them to the Harker's chamber, finding the door barricaded within. With a furious coordinated surge, they slammed against the heavy oak. The wood groaned, then splintered with a deafening crack, hinges screaming as the door burst inward. Silence descended, heavier than any sound, as the horror unveiled itself. There, in the dim, oppressive light, stood a tableau of unspeakable defilement. Dracula, a colossal shadow, loomed over the bed, then slowly turned, his eyes glowing with infernal triumph. Mina lay half-reclined, her nightdress stained crimson, her eyes wide with a terror that transcended sound. Dracula's powerful hand had forced her head back, pressing her face to his bared chest. From a fresh, ghastly wound on his chest, a pulsating wellspring of dark, vital fluid gushed. Into this horrific chalice, this fountain of unholy life, he pressed her lips. She choked, she gasped, a strangled sound of utter revulsion, but the dark ichor, warm and metallic, was forced down her throat, drop by agonizing drop. A vile sacrament, a blood baptism, binding her to him in unspeakable defilement. He savored the moment, fangs bared in a terrible, triumphant smile, the ultimate desecration of purity. As Dracula, with a final, contemptuous sneer, vanished into the ether, the men rushed to Mina's side. Van Helsing, his face a mask of grim resolve, retrieved a small, white sacramental wafer. With a choked prayer, he pressed it gently to Mina's forehead. A searing, unearthly scream tore from her throat, raw and agonizing, ripping through the very fabric of the night. Where the holy wafer had touched, a fiery mark, like a brand, appeared, burning into her skin, leaving a raw, blistering wound. She collapsed into a heartbroken sob, weeping tears of despair and self-loathing. The mark of purity had become a mark of pain, a searing reminder of her unwilling defilement, a chilling promise of the battle ahead. Chapter 22. The race begins. The air in the library, thick with the lingering scent of stale pipe smoke and the electric tension of a grim resolve, yielded at last to the first tentative rays of a London dawn. The plan, forged in the crucible of their shared fear and burgeoning hope, was now chillingly clear. Van Helsing, his voice a low, resonant murmur, had outlined their desperate strategy to sterilize the very earth that sustained the monster. He held up a small, round wafer, ethereal in the weak light. This, he intoned, blessed by holy rites, becomes a vessel of pure, divine energy. We shall place it within each casket of earth, transforming his unholy sanctuary into a place of torment. For him, the touch of this sacred host will be as fire, a living hell. He will find no rest, no renewal there. The very ground he sought to make his own will reject him, irrevocably, eternally. His eyes, usually so sharp and knowing, now gleamed with a righteous fury. This act is a sacrilege against his unnatural existence, a wound that cannot be healed. Their mission was one of grim, silent urgency. The city was still largely asleep, shrouded in the pre-dawn hush, as the team split into three determined groups. Jonathan, Harker, and Arthur sped towards the desolate, decaying grandeur of Carfax. Dr. Seward and Quincy Morris, their faces set, navigated the labyrinthine streets leading to Piccadilly, where the Count held another unholy cache. Van Helsing himself, accompanied by a resolute Mina, took on the remaining known havens, moving with a practiced stealth that belied his academic demeanor. Each group carried their sacred wafers, wrapped reverently in linen, alongside tools to pry open the heavy lids of the crates. At Carfax, the air hung heavy and still as Harker and Arthur worked with feverish haste. The scent of ancient earth, dry and foreign, filled their nostrils as they forced open the first crate. With trembling hands, yet unwavering purpose, they embedded the wafer deep into the soil, a silent prayer escaping their lips. A subtle, almost imperceptible tremor seemed to pass through the very ground. They repeated the process for each box, a grim ritual of purification. It was amidst this sacred desecration that he appeared. Not a sound preceded him, no rustle of fabric, no creak of floorboard. One moment, the room was empty save for the two men and their hallowed work. The next, a colossal shadow detached itself from the deeper gloom, coalescing into the towering, menacing figure of Count Dracula. His eyes, twin coals of incandescent hatred, fixed first upon the opened, violated boxes, then upon the men who had dared to commit such an outrage. A guttural snarl ripped from his throat, a sound more animal than human, laced with an infernal fury that vibrated in the very air. "Fools!" he hissed, his voice a chilling whisper that seemed to claw at their sanity. "You meddle with powers beyond your understanding." Jonathan, though his heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird, gripped his crucifix tighter. Arthur, pale but resolute, brandished his own. The Count lunged, a blur of motion, but not towards them. His rage was boundless, but his instinct for self-preservation, honed over centuries, was keener still. He understood, in that searing instant, that these places of rest were now instruments of torture. He saw the gleam of resolve in their eyes, the strength of their faith. He knew he was outnumbered, outmaneuvered. His very sanctuaries turned against him. A horrifying realization dawned on him: he was hunted and without refuge. With a final, piercing glare of pure malevolence, he dissolved, not into mist, but into a whirlwind of bats that burst through a high, crumbling window, leaving behind only a faint, foul stench and an echoing silence that spoke volumes of his profound, absolute defeat and the terrifying chase that had just begun. Chapter 23. The flight east. The hunt began in earnest, but Dracula, ever cunning, had already started his escape. Our weary company, though shaken by the night's confrontation, scoured London's docks and shadowy streets. Jonathan, grim-faced, led the charge, his intimate knowledge of the Count's habits guiding them. Quincy Morris, ever vigilant, scanned every corner, while Lord Godalming and Dr. Seward questioned every dock worker, seeking any sign of a peculiar figure or a massive chest. It was Van Helsing whose keen intellect pierced the uncertainty. He sifted through every fragment of evidence, confirming his growing suspicion the docks were Dracula's escape route. And then, the chilling discovery: a Russian schooner, the Zarina Catherine Asterisk, had weighed anchor just before dawn, bound for Varna, a port on the Black Sea. The news struck like a thunderbolt. Dracula was retreating, heading back to his ancestral lands, his unholy earth secured within the ship's hold. The race was now truly joined, not just for survival, but for the very soul of England. A desperate urgency gripped them all. How to track a creature of the night across vast oceans and land. It was then that Van Helsing, his eyes alight with resolve, turned to Mina. Her involuntary, cursed bond with the Count, he proposed, could now be their most potent weapon. "My dear Mina," he began, his voice a gentle yet firm command, "the Master has bound you to him. This very bond, though vile, can be a blessing. We must use your pure spirit to pierce the veil, to see through his eyes, to hear through his ears." Mina, though pale, possessed an indomitable courage. She understood the profound violation, the terrifying intimacy, yet her resolve to aid her friends, to eradicate the evil, was absolute. She agreed. Van Helsing prepared the room, dimming the lights, his gaze unwavering as he took her hands. His voice, a low melodic drone, began its hypnotic spell, speaking of peace, of opening the mind to distant echoes. Silence fell save for the professor's measured cadence and Mina's soft, rhythmic breathing. Slowly, subtly, a change came over her. Her face smoothed into an ethereal calm. Her eyes, though closed, seemed to flicker. A faint shiver ran through her. "Tell us, Mina," Van Helsing urged. "What do you hear?" A long, tense moment passed. Then, her lips parted, and her voice, thin and distant, yet clear, began to speak. "I hear the rush of water. So much water lapping against wood. It's cold. And a great rocking asway. Up and down, up and down. I can feel the timbers groaning, the wind whipping by. It's dark, so dark. And I feel a closeness, a terrible, cold presence sleeping." Her words painted an undeniable picture. The ship, the sea, the journey. Dracula, quiescent but present, somewhere within that dark vessel. The telepathic link was a brutal truth, a desperate hope. They had found him, they knew his direction. The hunt for Dracula, now a global chase across continents and oceans, had truly commenced. Chapter 24. The pursuit, the chase, when it finally began, was a frantic, desperate gamble against time itself. Our band, united in purpose but shadowed by a profound dread, boarded the express train eastward, hurtling across the sprawling tapestry of Europe. Van Helsing, his brow furrowed with the weight of ages, charted our course with grim precision. Harker, now a man forged anew in the fires of trauma, watched the blurring landscape with a fierce, unwavering gaze. Morris, the intrepid American, clutched his Winchester, a silent sentinel. Lord Godalming and Dr. Seward, their faces etched with a shared determination, prepared for the ordeal ahead. Our objective, Varna, the coastal city on the Black Sea, where we hoped to intercept the Count's vessel, his unholy cargo still confined to its cursed earth. Each piston beat, each scream of the whistle, was a pulse of our collective hope, propelling us faster, we prayed, than the dark ship could sail. The days melted into a blur of frantic vigilance, sleep offering little solace, for even in slumber, the shadow of Dracula seemed to stretch. Yet, as we neared Varna, an insidious dread began to creep in. Mina, our beloved Mina, her strength ebbing, her spirit fighting a silent, internal war, grew increasingly attuned to the currents of this dark chase. Her skin, once so vibrant, now held a luminescence, an unsettling pallor. Her eyes, frequently shadowed, would sometimes widen with a preternatural awareness, as if she heard whispers beyond our mortal ken. The sacred wafer, a torment and a protection, seared her very being, a constant reminder of the growing vampiric stain that clawed at her soul. Her fear was palpable, a silent scream that pierced the hearts of those who loved her most. She was a barometer of our enemy's movements, a living, breathing testament to his insidious reach. We arrived in Varna, breathless, exhausted, only to be met with the cold, crushing hand of defeat. The harbor lay still, empty of the ship we sought. No vessel matching the description, no Demeter or its successor had arrived. Dracula, the cunning fiend, had outmaneuvered us. His perverse intellect had anticipated our every move, his dark influence twisting the very fabric of fate. The news, when it came, was a hammer blow. The ship had diverted, landing at Galatz, far up the Danube. Frustration, hot and bitter, surged through us. We had been tricked, outwitted, our desperate race rendered futile. He had chosen the river, not the open sea, an ancient serpentine path leading directly into the heart of Transylvania. Our advantage, our hope of ending him swiftly, was shattered. Now, a more arduous, perilous journey lay before us, into the very maw of his ancestral lands. The pursuit had begun anew, harder, darker, and with Mina's fading light casting a stark, terrible glow upon the path ahead. Chapter 25. Into the wild the chase was on, a desperate race against the gathering dusk. Van Helsing, with grim resolve, laid out the final perilous strategy. We must divide, he declared, to encircle the fiend, to ensure his doom. Thus the group split. Lord Godalming and Dr. Seward went by boat up the Surrey to intercept the Shganey caravan and Dracula's box. Jonathan Harker and Quincy Morris rode hard across the wildland, a flanking force to cut off escape. Their combined objective: trap Dracula, prevent his sanctuary's reach. But the most perilous path, the most ancient, was for Van Helsing and Mina. Their destination, Dracula's crumbling ancestral fortress. They traveled by carriage, then on foot as the road vanished. The air grew colder, malevolent. Mina, though weakened, walked with quiet strength, drawn by the castle. Van Helsing kept a protective hand on her, his mind fixed on the unspeakable task within. As the sun set, painting the sky blood-red, they reached the jagged ramparts of Castle Dracula. Van Helsing led Mina to a sheltered spot, instructing her to remain safe. With a heavy heart, he ventured into the decaying stronghold, guided by dark purpose. He descended into the crypt beneath a former chapel, the air thick with decay. There, amidst the time-worn stone, he found them. The three vampire brides from Harker's visit lay in accursed slumber, their beauty a venomous lure. With grim, unwavering resolve, Van Helsing approached the first, a consecrated host, a searing brand on her breast. Then he raised his hammer and the sharp wooden stake. No hesitation, only grim duty. A sharp, unearthly cry tore through the crypt as the stake struck. Her body convulsed, dissolved to macabre dust. He moved to the second, then the third, each a ritual of purification, with ghastly screams. When he emerged, his face was pale, but his eyes burned with fierce, purifying light. 3 ancient evils had been extinguished. Only the master remained. Chapter 26. The final stand. The air grew thin and sharp as the terrain clawed upwards, relentless and unforgiving, towards the very throat of the Borgo Pass. There, etched against the darkening canvas of the mountainside, a grim procession toiled. The Shganey, those enigmatic wanderers, driven by a perverse loyalty or a fear deeper than death, struggled with their final, unholy burden. The great wooden box, coffin-like and heavy with its infernal contents, was lashed precariously to a crude cart drawn by 2 straining horses. But the incline was vicious, the path little more than a goat track, and often the gypsies themselves were forced to put their shoulders to the task, pushing, heaving, grunting with effort, their faces grim under the waning light. Every step was a testament to their grim determination. Every inch gained a victory for the ancient evil they served, dragging it closer to the sanctuary of its decaying stronghold. They knew the urgency of the hour, the critical race against the vanishing light, and their movements, though laborious, held a desperate, feverish energy. Close behind, spurred by an adrenaline that defied the limits of human endurance, rode Jonathan Harker, Quincy Morris, and Arthur Homewood. Their horses, magnificent beasts pushed beyond exhaustion, labored over the treacherous ground, hooves scattering loose rock and earth. Jonathan, eyes fixed on the distant, struggling cart, felt a cold dread mingle with the burning fire of resolve within him. He spurred his horse onward, whispering encouragement to the heaving animal, his mind a whirlwind of fear for Mina and a fierce determination to end the nightmare. Beside him, Quincy, ever the frontiersman, rode with a quiet intensity, his hand never straying far from his repeating rifle, his gaze sharp and unwavering on the grim target ahead. Arthur, pale but resolute, urged his own mount forward, the image of Lucy's fate, and the very real threat to Mina, driving him with a relentless fury. They were a force of vengeance, a singular purpose forged in terror and loss, pursuing the very embodiment of evil to its ancient lair. The sun, a fiery disk, began its inexorable descent behind the jagged peaks, painting the western sky in hues of blood and bruised purple. Long skeletal shadows stretched out from the crags and trees, reaching like grasping fingers across the narrowing distance. With every passing minute, the light diminished, and with it, the hunter's dwindling hope. The chill of evening crept in, a harbinger of the dread power that would soon awaken fully. The castle, a brooding, malevolent silhouette, loomed ever larger, its broken battlements like jagged teeth against the twilight sky. The sound of the wind, rising now, seemed to whisper the Count's name, a mocking promise of his imminent triumph. The very air grew thick with a palpable tension, the sense of an ending, glorious or catastrophic, hanging heavy in the gathering gloom. Their hearts hammered against their ribs, a drumbeat against the encroaching darkness, knowing that if the sun dipped below the horizon before they reached their prey, all would be lost. This was the final stand, the ultimate gamble, played out on the cusp of an eternal night. Chapter 27, Sunset and Sacrifice. The chase reached its desperate climax. As the sun began its final descent, casting crimson shadows, the cart bearing Dracula's coffin rumbled toward his ancient castle. This was the moment. Wild cries erupted. Gypsies, loyal to the Count, materialized. They swarmed the cart, brandishing whips and knives in savage defense. Steel clashed, shouts filled the air. Jonathan, Arthur, and Dr. Seward fought with desperate ferocity. Van Helsing shielded Mina, her pallor mirroring the fading day. Jonathan and Quincy, with singular purpose, broke through. As the sun dipped below the horizon, sending one last glorious burst of light, they hurled themselves upon the coffin. The lid gave way, revealing the gaunt Count. Jonathan grimly raised his kukri. With a terrible arc, he severed the monster's throat. Simultaneously, Quincy plunged his knife into Dracula's heart. A shudder passed through the Count, his eyes snapped open, burning with malevolence and peace. Then, as if touched by fire, his body crumbled. Dracula dissolved into a heap of dust. The air, heavy with his evil, lightened. Our triumph, however, was immediately tempered. Quincy, staggering, clutched his side. A gypsy's knife had found its mark. He fell, his face paling, yet a smile touched his lips. "It is done!" he gasped, voice weakening. "The Count is gone! Thank God!" We gathered around him, watching life drain from our friend. His final breath was contentment, eyes fixed on the fading light. He had given his life to free us all. At that moment, a gasp escaped Mina's lips. The scar on her forehead vanished, her face, no longer shadowed by a curse, glowing with purity. The pallor lifted, replaced by a flush. Terror gone, replaced by peace. The evil was lifted, the sacrifice made, the sorrowful night promised a dawn of freedom. Welcome, intrepid listener, to Chapter 7, the 7-day action plan, an undertaking we shall call the Van Helsing Protocol. In a world teeming with the subtle, insidious drains on our vitality, just as Stoker's Dracula imperceptibly sapped the life force of his victims, we too face forces that seek to diminish our discipline and cloud our perception. But fear not, for Van Helsing himself, with his formidable intellect and unwavering resolve, offers us a blueprint. This week, we embark on a journey of meticulous observation and intentional action, directly inspired by the novel's profound themes, to fortify our own mental and emotional fortresses against the shadows of modern life. Our protocol commences with Hask Day. 1 and 2 start a journal. Dusk, cast your mind back to Jonathan Harker, trapped within Castle Dracula, meticulously documenting every chilling detail, every strange occurrence. His journal was not merely a record, it was his grip on reality, his weapon against the creeping madness. In our own lives, the constant bombardment of information, the blurred lines between work and leisure, can make us lose our bearings. For these first 2 days, commit to documenting your experiences. Note your routines, your thoughts, your interactions. What sparked joy? What caused unease? What small details did you notice about your environment, your conversations? This isn't about perfection, it's about presence. Write it all down. This simple, disciplined act of observation will sharpen your awareness, grounding you, and helping you identify the subtle shifts in your personal landscape before they become overwhelming. It's your daily stake in the ground, declaring ownership of your perceptions. As we progress into Ask Day 3 and 4, identify your energy vampires and set boundaries. Task, just as Dracula's presence drained the life from his victims, our modern lives are often plagued by entities, be they habits or people that subtly, yet relentlessly, deplete our vital energy. Armed with the sharpened observational skills from your journal, now is the time to identify these vampires. Is it the endless scroll on social media, sucking away precious hours? Is it a demanding commitment you dread, or a relationship that leaves you feeling exhausted and belittled? Perhaps it's a constant internal critic. Be honest with yourself. Once identified, the Van Helsing approach demands decisive action, setting boundaries. This might mean dedicating specific screen-free times, learning to say no to non-essential requests, or limiting interaction with individuals who consistently undermine your well-being. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's an act of radical self-preservation, protecting your finite resources from parasitic influences. Finally, we arrive at Day 5, 6, and 7. Build your crew of light. Recall the incredible alliance Van Helsing forged: Dr. Seward, Lord Godalming, Quincy Morris, Mina and Jonathan Harker, a diverse group united by courage and a shared purpose. They understood that no one can fight the darkness alone. For the remainder of our week, focus intensely on reconnecting with and strengthening your own support network, your personal crew of light. Reach out to friends, family members, or mentors who uplift you, who challenge you constructively, who genuinely listen and offer support. These are the individuals whose presence amplifies your strength, whose counsel provides clarity, and whose camaraderie reminds you of your inherent worth. Schedule a coffee, make a call, share a meal. Invest your energy in these relationships, for they are your allies in navigating life's inevitable challenges, providing the collective strength and emotional resilience necessary to thrive. The Van Helsing Protocol is more than just a 7-day plan. It is a commitment to a life of conscious discipline and keen observation. By embracing these principles, you are not merely surviving, you are actively reclaiming your vitality, fortifying your mind, and building an unassailable defense against the many unseen forces that seek to diminish you. Be vigilant, be brave, be your own Van Helsing. Welcome back, fellow travelers, through the shadowed realms of Bram Stoker's Dracula. We've journeyed through harrowing nights and desperate dawns, witnessed the terror and the triumph. Now, as the dust settles and the sun rises on a world freed from the Count's malevolent grip, let us distill our epic voyage into 3 profound lessons, core truths that resonate long after the final page is turned. Our first crucial takeaway, the power of record-keeping truth, is found in the details. Consider the very fabric of our narrative a mosaic of diary entries, ship's logs, newspaper clippings, letters, and phonograph recordings. Each fragmented piece, meticulously preserved by characters like Jonathan Harker and the indefatigable Mina Murray, initially seems a disparate scrap. Yet, it is through their diligent collection and transcription that the horrifying pattern emerges. Dr. Seward's daily notes, Mina's tireless organization, Van Helsing's careful deductions. These acts of detailed documentation are not mere literary devices, they are the very engine of discovery. Without the precise record of events, symptoms, and observations, the true nature of the enemy would remain an inscrutable enigma, leaving our heroes forever chasing phantoms. The truth, however monstrous, reveals itself patiently, syllable by careful syllable, within the mundane beauty of the recorded fact. Our second indelible lesson: collective action. Evil thrives in isolation, good wins through cooperation. Dracula, an entity of ancient, singular power, operates in the shadows, preying on the vulnerable and the solitary. His strength lies in dividing, conquering through secrecy and the isolation of his victims. But against him rises a crew of light, a diverse assembly: the stoic Harker, the steadfast Seward, the noble Homewood, the courageous Morris, the brilliant Van Helsing, and the insightful Mina. None could face the Count alone. It is only when they pool their knowledge, share their fears, combine their unique skills, and act in unified purpose that they begin to turn the tide. Their strength is not individual might, but the unbreakable bond of shared humanity, a testament to the idea that where one might fall, many can stand, triumphing over darkness through the sheer force of their collective will. And finally, our third vital insight. Modernity vs tradition. Don't let arrogance blind you to ancient wisdom. Text, the Victorian era, with its burgeoning science and rationalism, is a backdrop for Dracula. Characters like Dr. Seward initially struggle to reconcile their empirical understanding with the fantastical horrors unfolding before them. They reach for blood transfusions and scientific diagnoses. But it is Van Helsing, a man of profound intellect, who nonetheless embraces folklore, superstition, and the wisdom of centuries past, who holds the key. Garlic, crucifixes, holy wafers. These are not relics of ignorance, but potent weapons born of ancient knowledge passed down through generations. The story cautions against the hubris of believing that contemporary tools alone can solve all problems. It teaches us to humble ourselves, to open our minds to truths that may lie beyond the current scientific paradigm, reminding us that sometimes the oldest stories hold the deepest, most necessary wisdom for fighting the most primal evils. Thus, Dracula endures, not merely as a thrilling tale of terror, but as a timeless allegory, offering these powerful lessons on the nature of truth, the strength of unity, and the enduring relevance of ancestral knowledge. May these takeaways illuminate your own journey, far beyond the haunted castles and foggy London streets. The shadows, as you know by now, are long and full of secrets, especially when Count Dracula is lurking. We've journeyed deep into the chilling heart of Bram Stoker's masterpiece, exploring the human fears and the monstrous fascinations that lie within its pages. But even after the most harrowing hunt, there's always more to discover, more to discuss, and certainly more tales to unearth. Now that we've delved into the very essence of Stoker's original vision, I find myself pondering a question I often hear, and one I'm truly eager for you to share your thoughts on. Of all the faces Dracula has worn throughout history, which one captivates you most? Is it the iconic, aristocratic menace embodied by Christopher Lee, whose piercing gaze and chilling presence defined an era of horror? Or perhaps the tormented, tragic, and profoundly romantic figure brought to life by Gary Oldman, adding layers of complex humanity to the monstrous? Or do you, like many purists, find the most profound terror, the truest essence of the vampire, in the stark, relentless narrative of Bram Stoker's original book, the very source material we've explored today? Share your own definitive count below. I'm genuinely eager to hear which iteration has sunk its fangs deepest into your imagination. If this humanized summary, this deep dive behind the fangs and into the very human fears and struggles depicted in Stoker's world, resonated with you, if it deepened your appreciation, ignited a new curiosity, or simply offered an engaging escape, then I humbly ask you to cast a like upon this episode. It's a small gesture, yet it means the world to us, signaling that these journeys into classic literature are indeed worthwhile and valued. And should you wish to continue these expeditions into the timeless tales that have shaped our cultural landscape, I extend a heartfelt invitation: subscribe to this channel. Join our growing legion of literary adventurers. By subscribing, you ensure you won't miss a single chapter as we unravel the intricate narratives, the hidden meanings, and the enduring power of classic literature, just like we've done with Dracula. We'll be dissecting tales of heroism and villainy, love and loss, courage and despair, from the greatest minds that ever penned a word. Think of it as joining the ultimate hunt, not for the count, but for enlightenment, for understanding, and for the sheer, boundless joy of discovery that only truly great stories can provide. Come, be a part of our continuing hunt for the profound and the captivating.